Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. So shall we get started, Kavya?
Yes, sir.
We won't have much time, I guess.
Yes, sir.
Let's do as much as we can.
Mm.
Yeah. Um, like Tiruvalluvar, Sant Kabir Das is also a very mysterious character. Not much is known about his birth. There are all kinds of legends about who he is and how he came to be who he uh, how he came to become who he became. There are all
Mm.
kinds of legends around him, and none of these are they cannot be authenticated, so to speak. Uh, but I would like to clarify one point here because these people are referred to as when people are talking about them in English, they refer to them as saints.
Mm.
Okay, and they basically uh, call them Hindu saints, but one should not be using the word saint on any of these people. Okay, because in Hinduism there is no concept of saint. Okay, sant
Mm.
is now English is an Indo-European language, so it is something that what should I say? It is something that uh, basically uh, has a lot of commonalities with people with languages in India, because English is an Indo-European language, and today there is an argument among linguists that one should not consider uh, uh, English to be a foreign language in India, because along with French and German, uh, English shares roots with Sanskrit, uh, with what is the with Marathi, with Hindi, Bengali, and Urdu. Okay, these are all Indo-European languages. Okay, that English can be European is a thing that is easy to accept. But the fact that Marathi, Hindi, uh, and Bengali or Bangla, as they call it, if you go to Bengal and say Bengali, they won't like it. They call the language Bangla. So these languages, being Indo-European, is a bit of a stunner for a number of people. Anyway, so being an Indo-European language, uh, the root of saint and sant are the same, but the meanings are very, very different. Sant, the other language I forgot to mention, Punjabi is the other Indo-European language. That is, in fact, the language that we should not forget, especially in the context of Kabir, because he had a very big influence on Guru Nanak, and he also, a lot of his syncretism, Kabir Das's syncretism, is something that finds its way into Sikhism. Okay, so one must remember that though they share the same root, saint, sant, they also almost sound alike, but the difference is that uh, over the years, when the meanings have evolved, there has been a great change. Now, a sant in India is a North Indian word. You don't find that in South India, obviously. In South India, we use Swami in place of Sant. But in Hindi, you have Sant, Mahant, and even persons of knowledge, not any knowledge, religious knowledge or knowledge of the Shastras, those people are also called Maharaj. Okay, so Kabir Das is also sometimes referred to as Sant Kabir Maharaj. Okay, the latest Maharaj that I know is Nisargadatta. Nisargadatta Maharaj is what the North Indians call him. But Sant Kabir Das is his name, but some people refer to him as Sant Kabir Maharaj. Now, it's a very strange thing that we talk about Kabir Das. Now, he was supposed to have been born in the 15th century. It's a supposition because nobody really knows the date. It is also supposed that he was born in Varanasi. That is what people say, that he was born in Varanasi. Now, this is where the several cock and bull stories start. Some people say that Kabir's mother was a Brahmin lady who was unwed, meaning she did not marry. Okay, but that would make him an illegitimate son if she did not marry. So there is a legend which says that Kabir was born out of a right palm due to divine blessing. Okay. Some other people say all that is nonsense. He is an illegitimate child. This is one theory. The other theory is that he was born to Muslim parents. Now, this is a bit of a gray area. It is quite possible that he was born to Muslim parents, but you rarely see in Kabir uh, influences of Islam. You find that Kabir is somebody who is more influenced by the Bhakti movement. It almost took a few centuries for the Bhakti movement to move from south to north. Okay, the Bhakti movement, which started under Ramanujacharya, that particular movement went into the northern part of the country much, much later. Okay, and therefore, yeah, there is a there is this idea that he was actually influenced by the Bhakti movement. And so people say that his parents were not originally Muslims. They were Hindus and or those who practiced Sanatana Dharma. At that time, Hindu, the word was not very prevalent still in the 15th century. So you will see that whenever he talks about God, he talks about him as Ram. Rama, actually. He doesn't even say Ram. He says Rama. All right. And so he does not show any acquaintance with Urdu. By then, the Urdu language had come into being, and he does not show acquaintance with Persian, any of those languages, which the Muslims used to have. So you will see that most of his writings are in different vernacular dialects of Hindi. The one that he used extensively is Braj Bhasha. Okay, the area where Uttar Pradesh is today and where Varanasi and all these places are even geographically described as Braj. Okay, Braj. That area is itself called Braj. And the form of Hindi that is spoken there is Braj Bhasha. And he is, if you look at he's a poet. He's not you really can't call him much of a philosopher. You definitely can't say that he has anything to do with political thinking. Nothing whatsoever. Nothing to do with governance. Nothing to do with none of his poetry has anything to do with these. And in a sense, perhaps he could have been a social reformer of sorts, but that is just about it. Otherwise, he was mainly a poet who use the form of couplets. Couplets are those which are, you know, uh, used in those which are written in 2 lines. Okay, so I don't know if you did Hindi in school, you must have studied Kabir ke dohe, Rahim ke
Yes, sir.
dohe. Yeah, so doha is 2 lines. So Kabir ke dohe are all 2-liners. And what I remember of him is that there were some very imaginative classmates of mine who used to write dohas about Kabir, which were incredibly funny, but I can't share them with you. So they are extremely disrespectful. And so, but it did bring me back those memories from school. There were some 2 or 3 chaps in my class who were extremely naughty, who used to paraphrase or actually write dohas about Kabir himself. Anyway,
Mhm.
so now people claim that he probably became, I mean, his parents converted to Islam much later, if at all they were Muslims. They must have been Hindus originally, or those who followed Sanatana Dharma. So that is the reason why the Das and the Sant are prefixed and suffixed. Now there is contention that Sant is a saint. Like I said, no, because any person with a certain amount of spiritual knowledge, that is the best word that I can find. Spiritual knowledge is called a sant in the northern part of the country. But whereas in order to be, everybody is not called a saint in uh, Christianity. Okay, saint uh, is not a saint when he is alive, he or she. Okay, you can have saints who are uh, men or women. Okay, in Christianity, but uh, here Sant is something which is applicable only to men. Okay, Mirabai is not called Sant Mirabai. Mirabai.
Mm.
She's not called that. Okay, she's just called Mirabai, though she was a devotional person. Uh, so anyway, now in order to be a saint, you have to go through a process called beatification. Beatification. And this is there now only among the Catholics. It's not there among the Protestants. And a sainthood is conferred on a person posthumously after they die if they are supposed to have performed 3 miracles. Okay, only those people who have performed 3 miracles are evaluated by a committee in the Vatican, of which the Pope is also a member, and then a decision will be taken to either confer the title of saint or not to confer the title of a saint. Uh, the latest saint that I know is Mother Teresa. Okay, I don't know what miracles she performed though, but she has been given that particular status of a saint after she passed away. Okay, she's the latest person that I know. I don't think anybody else has been conferred sainthood after that, but I could be wrong. I really could be wrong. Anyway, so but please don't call these Indian, irrespective of their religious identity or their philosophical leanings, do not use the word saint. Uh, you can use sant if you're doing it in the context of North Indians, and you can use Swami or Acharya if you're doing it in the context of the southern part of the country. Okay, so like I said, he was supposed to have been born in Varanasi. We don't know much about his parents. Like I said, that story of his immaculate conception being born through the hand is obviously rubbish. Some people say that mother abandoned him and he was brought up by Muslims. But like I said, the influences of Islam on him are very, very negligible. I'm not saying that there are no influences. There are influences, but he never uses Allah. He always says Ram. Okay. And given the fact that Muslims don't take kindly to people who talk about non-Muslim gods, right? They don't take kindly to people acknowledging anyone other than Allah as a god and anyone other than Prophet Muhammad as the Prophet of Allah. They don't accept that. So, given the fact that he seems to have been accepted there, shows that he was probably not very touched by that. Touched as in he didn't come into contact with too much of Islam. So that remains a uh, it remains a bit of a mystery. Okay, so that is one thing. Uh, Now, people claim that the strongest influence upon him was his guru, whose name is Ramananda. And Ramananda is a guru who believed in the bhakti movement. In fact, there are some people who argue that it was Ramananda who took the tenets of the bhakti movement from the south to the north. That's what they say. But that again doesn't seem like a correct theory, because the place of birth of Ramananda is Prayag, which later became Allahabad. Okay, and now, thanks to Yogi Adityanath, it has become Prayagraj. Okay, but the old name for that place is just Prayag, not Prayagraj. I don't know why they added the Raj. It became Allahabad in the middle, and there were a lot of Hindus who were reluctant to call it Allahabad because Allahabad people thought was named after Allah. So you'll find a lot of Hindus referring to that place as Allahabad. And now they are doing the same thing in, when I say Hindus, it's the RSS, BJP, this kind of. So they call it, they used to call it Allahabad. Now they call it Prayagraj. Similarly, Ahmedabad is obviously Ahmed. Ahmedabad, but the Sangh Parivar, which comprises of the RSS and comprises of the BJP, they now call it Ahmedabad. Okay, Amdavad. Ahmedabad is what they call it, which is a strange way of changing the name of a place. Okay. Anyway, so let's not get into those kind of details. What we need to remember is that Kabir is somebody who grew up in Varanasi. Now, his teacher, Ramananda, is supposed to have been born in the 15th century, according to some, and in the 14th century, according to some. Okay, now then this becomes another source of dispute. It becomes a source of dispute because of the fact that we are looking at, what should we say? We are looking at the fact that if he's born in the 15th century, then he should be a contemporary of Kabir. And if he was born in the 14th century, then perhaps he shouldn't uh, have anything to do with Kabir. Uh, but to bridge this kind of a gap, a new theory came up. The new theory says that you'll have Kabir, Ramananda, born somewhere towards the end of the 14th century and moved to Varanasi from Prayag, and he started living there and preaching there. He started the Bhakti movement in Varanasi, and he was a devotee of Rama, and he was Kabir's guru. Now, this is where the controversies start. If you are aware of Varanasi, and if you are aware of what are called Sthala Puranas, which are about the place as such, then Varanasi is a seat of Shaivism. The main temple that is there in Varanasi is a Shiva temple. There is no Ram temple or Vishnu temple or any of the avatars of Vishnu. No, none of those. They may be there, they are new ones. Somebody may have built. These days, people build, if you find 2 feet of land, people will build a temple or a mosque. That's a different issue. But ancient temples, none of them are there. The only ancient temple that is there is a Shiva temple. So, Ramananda moving to Varanasi to give Bhakti Prabodha, as they are calling it, which is to impart knowledge about the Bhakti movement and its contents uh, to, to people and to make them devotees of Ram is the first big controversy that one will find, apart from the fact that there is also total uncertainty about his being born in which century. It is believed that he was born in Prayag, and he died in Varanasi. I'm talking about Ramananda. And he is definitely called a Vaishnava devotional poet. Okay, he's called a Vaishnava devotional poet, and he was a worshipper of Rama. Uh, it is believed that Ramananda actually founded this whole thing called Ramanandi Sampradaya. Okay, it is not Ramananda Sampradaya, it is Ramanandi Sampradaya. I looked it up in Sanskrit Vyakaran. It says that one who is happy or one who's in a state of happiness is an Anandi. Okay, that person is called an Anandi or Anandin, like you say sannyasi or sannyasin. Okay, and a follower of Advaita is called an Advaitin, or some people say Advaiti also. So Ramanandi Sampradaya basically means those who derive a spiritual happiness by praying to Rama. Okay, and Sampradaya is a tradition, technically speaking, but over the years, apparently, people have converted this Ramanandi Sampradaya into some kind of a monastery. Okay, which is a monastery is a place where people who are called renunciants or those who have renounced the world, renounced the world is given up, who have become sannyasins essentially. Okay, they lived in this monastery. Okay, and people say that it was just a Sanatana Dharma monastery. Some people say Hindu monastery. Though the Sampradaya itself is called Ramanandi, Ramanandi Sampradaya, but the monastery is not called Ramanandi Monastery. Okay, so there again is a bit of an uncertainty. Did this monastery get established by Ramananda, or did somebody else establish it? So this is one of the questions that remains unanswered. All these people that we are supposed to be studying now, they raise more questions than give answers. They are problems to a lot of solutions. Okay, normally we go in search of solutions to problems, but apparently my department believes that we should find problems to solutions. So that is how it is. But there is apparently complete certainty about the fact that Ramananda is the one who took the bhakti movement and devotion to Rama to the northern part of the country. Okay, that is what people today believe in. So apart from Kabir Das, who is considered to be one of the famous disciples of you know, famous disciples of Ramananda. The other very famous disciple, I think he is a part of the curriculum, is Ravidas, Ravidas. Okay, so that essentially means that Ravidas and Kabir Das must be contemporaries. But the way in which your syllabus is organized, it doesn't look like uh, there is a possibility of there being uh, contemporaries. But we'll discuss that point when we come to Ravidas. Let's not discuss it while we are doing Kabir Das. Now, so Kabir is supposed to have met Ramananda when he's also called Sant Ramananda, when he went to Varanasi, and he is supposed to have learnt the Vedanta of Ramanujacharya, which was a major influence on Ramananda. Okay, so we are talking about a very major influence of Ramanujacharya on Ramananda, and this is there as an influence on Kabir Das. Okay, so that is what is one of the many narrations that exist about Kabir Das. So the Vedanta, though people say that there is only one Vedanta, Vedanta is the end of the learning of the Vedas. So, but there people say that, you know, the Shaivist Vedanta is different from the Vaishnavite or Vaishnava Vedanta. So whatever it is, anyway, so we have to accept this, that Ramananda took the Vedanta of Ramanujacharya. It is also believed that Kabir was exposed to this form of Vedanta, and he was guided by the Bhakti movement and Ramanujacharya's Vedanta. And apart from this, there is another uh, influence that is cited on Kabir, which is called the Nath Panthi Yoga. Okay, Nath, Nath Panthi, Panthi. Panthi is a road. Okay, Nath Panthi Yoga is supposed to be a road that is taken by ascetics or sannyasins in order to attain greater knowledge through different forms of yoga. Our idea of yoga today is that it is asanas. Okay, you have various asanas. You have Dharurasana, Sirasasana, Sarvangasana. So we talk about yoga in that form. I believe that yoga is called just Hatha Yoga. Then there is other form of yogas which is called Nishkama Karma Yoga, which is Nishkama Karma Yoga is doing things without expecting anything back in return for what you have already done. That is, if you do, for example, if you do a favor to somebody, you shouldn't expect anything back from it. Okay, so that is the Nishkama Karma Yoga. Nathpanthi Yoga is a way of reaching divine knowledge. Nath is also uh, a suffix used for gods. Okay, Vishwanath. Vishwanath is one who is the ruler of the world. Okay, and that is something that is given to Shiva, Kashi Vishwanath, as he's called. So there apparently are Shaivist influences also, because the Nathpanthi yoga is supposed to be that particular school is supposed to be from the Shaivist way of doing things. In which case, the question that arises is Kabir really somebody who is influenced by the bhakti movement of Ramanujacharya and Ramananda? Because if he's there in the Nathpanthi also, so that throws yet another spanner into the works. Now, what comes after this is even more baffling. It's baffling because Kabir rejected Vedas. If he rejected Vedas, then the question that we ask ourselves is, how did he become a Vedantin, or somebody who followed the Vedanta system that was propagated by Ramanujacharya? Okay, Vedanta is you're having understood all the Vedas and the Sara of Veda, Veda Sara as it is called. If you understand that, then you are a Vedantin. But Kabir is supposed to have rejected the whole Vedic system itself. Okay, because he found that the Vedic system and the Vedanta system are based in rituals. Okay, so that itself is a little bit apparent in the poetry that he writes. From what I can remember, he is against the whole idea of rituals. I can't remember the dohas in Hindi now, but I do remember some of them. There is especially one about the Kasturi deer, which secretes the Kasturi from its Nabhi, which is navel. And the smell of Kasturi is supposed to be great. And the deer, which deer is DEER, deer, antelope. This particular deer, which is called the Kasturi deer, this doesn't realize that the smell is coming from itself. So it roams the forest in search of uh, the source of that smell. Okay, so that is what Kabir did right. And I don't remember the exact doha. In another thing, he says a proper sannyasin is a sthita prajna. Sthita prajna is one who doesn't need to roam the world to understand it. A sthita prajna is one who has knowledge, and being knowledgeable, he is somebody who doesn't have to travel. Those kind of meanings are also there. And he's he is somebody who supports that sthita prajna kind of a thing. I can't remember the doha. I mean, imagine if I went to school, it must have been 300 years ago. So nobody has that long a memory, right? Least of all me. So anyway, so this people have shown as, is he really a disciple of Ramananda, and is he a contemporary of Ravidas? Now, Kabir was also very, very critical of the Sanatana Dharma tradition itself. Okay, apart from the Vedas, of which he was very critical, he's also critical of the Sanatana Dharma tradition, which he said is based in unnecessary and inexplicable rituals. Okay, and he is totally against the recantation of mantras, or what were called the Veda mantras. Okay, please remember one thing, the Veda has to be read out aloud. So if you're reading it aloud, then it basically means that you're recanting it. Recanting it is, you already know it, but you're once again telling the world that thing. So he says, why are we doing it? If we know it, we know it. It's like, why do we have to get up and do the same things again and again and again? So he was anti-rituals. He was against the thread ceremony. He was against this recantation of Vedic mantras. He says, what purpose do they achieve? If they are to enlighten you, and if you have understood them, then don't bother about them anymore. You don't need to bother about them anymore. Divert your mind and go somewhere else. Find something else. Why are you going on recanting the same thing? And he said, what is this sacred the thread ceremony? And it is under the influence of Kabir that Guru Nanak, who was a Brahmin by birth, also rejected his thread ceremony. Okay, so he criticized the uh, recanting of these and the thread ceremony, the Upanayana. He says these are all unnecessary things. And he was also a critic of Islam for whatever reasons. And he believed that the Quran, again, is something that is recanted again and again. You know, like we have shlokas in Sanskrit. The Quran, which is in Arabic or in Persian, is in what are called sunnas. Okay, that is a rough equivalent of a shloka. Okay, so he was against these recantation of sunnas, and he was completely opposed to the practice of circumcision that was followed on the genitalia of not just men but also on women. And this practice still exists in Indonesia even today. Circumcision of women, circumcision of men exists in India as well. But this particular practice was there in his time on both men and women. And he said, what is the purpose of this? Why are you taking this up? So he was completely against it. He was completely against the Quran. He rejected the Quran. Just as he rejected the Vedas, he also rejected the Quran. And he also had seen a similarity in both the Quran and in the Sanatana Dharma tradition, which is the Vedic texts, which are all about rites of passage. Okay, now rites of passage has two meanings. One is rites of passage from one stage to another stage in life, ashrama, from brahmacharya to grihastha, from grihastha to vanaprastha, from vanaprastha to sannyasin. That is one rite of passage. The other rite of passage is after death, becoming one with the Brahman or having nirvana. That is the final rite of passage. He says both religions have these useless rites of passage, and nobody knows anything about what happens after death. And he says all these rituals that are performed time and again during one's lifetime and after one's death are all things that need to be stopped. Okay, so some people say that he gained acceptance among both Muslims and Hindus after his death. While he was alive, he was completely rejected. He was totally rejected by the Muslims and Hindus. But people say that he was somebody who was accepted by both traditions, which is a wrong thing. The Muslims have not accepted him. The Muslims do not accept anyone who rejects the Quran. Okay. He has been accepted by reformers of Hinduism. Okay. He was accepted by people say that there was his influence on Raja Ram Mohan Roy and the founding of the Brahma Samaj, and also on Dayananda Saraswati and the founding of the Arya Samaj. People say these are there, but I don't think this is also very correct, because if you look at the Brahma Samaj is something that says letters written back to the Vedas. Raja Ram Mohan Roy's idea of all the superstitions and bad practices that came into what he gave the name Hinduism. He was the one who gave that name. Hinduism, he says, all that happened because of leaving Vedic learning and getting into other forms of superstitious learning. So the Brahma Samaj reform was to go back to the Vedas and to Sanatana Dharma. Okay, so he differentiated between Hinduism and Sanatana Dharma. All right, and if you look at the Arya Samaj, yes, it doesn't say no to rituals, as does the Brahma Samaj. It also says no to rituals. But the Arya Samaj is also a revival movement. It's not just a reformist movement. It is a revival movement which wanted to bring back the Aryan culture. That is why it is the Arya Samaj. Okay, and I told you, Gandhi also calls them the Aryas. He doesn't call them the Aryans. Aryan is an anglicization, perhaps, but Indians basically use Arya. So the Arya Samaj, as we know it, is something which wants to revive the Arya culture. The Brahma Samaj wants, so I don't know if he was accepted or if he was not. But one thing we can be definite about is that he had a strong influence on Sikhism. And because of that influence, Guru Nanak himself I told you, rejected the Upanayana ceremony, and there are in the Guru Granth Sahib, which is the sacred text of the Sikhs, you will find some of these utterances of Kabir Das in it. Okay, there are apparently a number of, I have not read the Guru Granth Sahib, so I am taking somebody else's word for it, but he is supposed to have basically influenced Guru Nanak so much that some of his dohas, some of his words have found their way into the Guru Granth Sahib itself. Then some people claim that uh, Kabir's legacy was kept alive by what is called the Kabir Panth. Those who, like the Nath Panthis, these people are called the Kabir Panthis. And there is a mutt. I don't know, if you write it as MATH, then it becomes math. If you write MUTT, mutt is a dog. A mutt is in like you have Adi Shankar mutts. Okay. Then you have Madhvacharya's Uttaradi mutt, Sri Krishna mutt. So you have all these mutt. A mutt is a peetam, and there is supposed to be one which is called the Sant Mutt, which was established by the followers of Kabir Das. And these people are called the Kabir Panthis. Now, in his own time, Kabir has been described as a Bairagi. Okay, he has been described as a Bairagi, which many people will tell you is a Vaishnava yogi. That is only partially correct, because a Vaishnava yogi can also be a Bairagi. It is actually the Sanskrit word Vairagi. Vairagya is giving up the world, renouncing the world is Vairagya. Okay, in, like, for example, our state Bihar is Vihar. We think only the Bengalis cannot say Va. Lot of North Indians cannot say Va. Okay, they say Ba. That is, so Bihar is actually Buddha Vihar, because that is where uh, Buddha is supposed to have walked. Vihar is to walk around, right? So there are a lot of, like, Vajpayee is also called Bajpayee, right?
Yes, sir.
So yeah, so Vairagya is what one should look at. So he's been called a Bairagi and he accepted it. And the only god that he kept talking about was Ram. Okay, so Ram was the only god. And his other thing I want to wind up, if you look at Irfan Habib is a pretty famous historian, and he also has a little bit of Islamic leanings. He says he found a Persian book which is actually called Dabistan-e Dabistani Mazhab. Okay, Dabistane actually it is, though they write I. Dabistane Mazhab, don't worry, bother about that book. In that, there is a reference to Kabir as a Bairagi, okay, and as a follower of Ram. That is what Irfan Habib says. Okay, so that is indication of the fact that he had been completely rejected by other religion, which is Islam. Now, the main point, if what is the main point of Kabir's philosophy, if he had a philosophy, he believed that as long as you invoke the I, the self, as long as you invoke the self, then you are basically doing injustice to yourself and to the world, because the consciousness of the self is that which stands in the way of you becoming or understanding the truth with a capital T. Truth with a capital T is what that which drives the world. Okay, like in the case of Buddha, he said dukkha is the truth. Okay, all suffering is due to dukkha, which is sadness. Right. So that is what one should see. And then Kabir also also said something else. He said there is no God outside of the human being. This thing is that God exists within the human being. And so he said, as long as you keep thinking of the I, when your ego comes in the way, you don't realize the God in you. Okay, so very funnily, there is an Indologist of French origin, a lady who has a funny surname. The lady's name is Charlotte, Charlotte, Charlotte Vaudevilles, Vaudeville. It is pronounced Vaudeville. It's not pronounced Vaudeville. Vaudeville is actually a street of ghosts and darkness. I don't know why she had a surname like that. Now she places Kabir. She studied Kabir, this lady who is an Indologist and also a philologist. I told you, a philologist is one who can interpret from the syntax and construction of sentences. They can interpret uh, either spoken word or written text and find out the meanings out of it. She places him in the monistic tradition of Advaita. Whereas if you look at Ramanujacharya's Advaita is clarified Advaita, which is Visishta Advaita. Okay, that's not monism. It is clarified monism, which means that there is only one point when that monism happens, and that is during nirvana. But Kabir doesn't seem to say that. If I go back to the same example that I gave you about that Kasturi deer, okay, that is exactly what Kabir says about human beings. He says you don't realize that God is there in you, and you are in search of him, going on pilgrimages to various different places, whereas God resides in you. And this for her is the proof, her meaning Charlotte Vaudevilles. She believes that this is good enough proof to call him a believer of Nirguna Brahman. She uses this term. Okay, Brahman is the universe, but This universe is nirguna. Guna is what? Guna is characteristics. Good, bad, ugly. If these come in, again, then you're not an Advaitin. An Advaitin is one who believes that the Brahman is nirguna, does not have any gunas, is neither good nor bad, nor beautiful, nor ugly, none of those. Okay, so that is a nirguna Brahman. So she says he's an Advaitin who believed in nirguna Brahman. Okay, now a lot of people have questioned if Kabir is really the writer of all those dohe or has somebody else written it. But we do know that he is somebody who existed with all these confusions. And we'll wind up here. I think this is enough. We can go on. So let's say there is a contradiction. Is he a bhakti philosopher or is he an Advaitin who believed in Nirguna Brahman? We'll stop here. We can talk about how he used shabads and kirtans and how they went into the Gurbani. I'm tired, and you must be
Okay, sir.
finished. You must be finished completely.
No, sir.
I don't know. Since you're the only one, this has given me a lot of time. So let's say bye bye to Kabir today. Tomorrow we'll
Okay,
do
sir.
Yogi Vemana
Mm.
and get on with it. Okay.
Okay,
Thank
sir.
you. Thank you, Kabir.
Okay, sir. Bye, sir.
Bye.